moment of silence to mark the passing yesterday of His Highness Prince Karim Aga Khan IV, spiritual leader to 15 million plus Ismaili Muslims. Thank you. I am especially grateful to members of the Ismaili community who are in mourning and who are here joining us for this event. But even outside of the Ismaili community, we lost a tremendous leader in the Muslim community. We lost a leader to the world. And the irony isn't lost on me that, when we're seeing decimation of human rights, we're seeing erosion of goodness. We've lost a man for over 50 years who led the world and did so much good. Apart from his role of uplifting members of his community, the legacy which is being written across the world by media and others, the world will realize the tremendous impact that His Highness had on all types of people, underprivileged people, uplifting them, and his work in hospitals, in universities, and in some way it is befitting that we are joining here today to talk about another great institution in the making, and one of the legacies, one of the many legacies that His Highness has left for us. Thank you for all of you folks to brave the weather. Chicago is known to scare people about the weather, and my commute in was not anywhere near what was projected, but regardless, you left the comfort of your homes, your warm homes, to join us here. I'd like, by a show of hands, those for whom this is the first formal interaction with Habib University. About 20% or so. Wonderful. I'm thankful to Wasif Rizvi, the president of Habib University, and Aksa Janejo. Where's Aksa? There he is, okay. From the office of the president, who have traveled here from Karachi to be with us. And I'm thankful to the core team here in Chicago, which is comprised of my dear friend Rafiq Mohammadi, Amir Chalisa, Lakhani, and Mariam Al-Sikafi, who couldn't be here due to an issue with the family. She had traveled to Pakistan. This, for us, for Yasmin and I, my wife right here, who is, he keeps getting dragged into all of my projects. This one, I think you're happy to be dragged into. We were visiting Habib University, I think it was December of 2003, about a year ago. And the first time we visited the campus, and we were drawn in by the manifestation of its vision, the mere fact that it was located in an area that has not been served well from an higher ed perspective. And then just interacting with the faculty and students, we knew that we were experiencing something very special. And then since then, we've had interactions with the team, the leadership team there. They visited us here in the spring for some initial meetings, and this is what we're calling the inaugural community event, for you all to learn a little bit more about what they've been up to over the past 10 years and their vision. And we will stay honest to the, as they say, truth in advertising. This is not a fundraiser. This is purely an event to have you understand what they're trying to do. And we hope that you will you'll be drawn to it, and you will join the small core team that has been working on this effort and many other efforts. and get involved in various ways, and we'll speak about how and what that would look like. I want to recognize all of you are esteemed guests, but I want to recognize a couple of dignitaries who are just walking into the room. So we are joined by Mr. Tariq Kareem, who just joined us. He's the Consul General of Pakistan, and his wife, Asma. We are also fortunate here to have Mr. Samir Ahmed, who's the Deputy Consul of Canada to Chicago, and many, many others. I also want to recognize, and you'll hear from her in a little bit, Ms. Sayyida Habib, daughter of the founding and current Chancellor of Habib University, Mr. Rafiq Habib, and she'll say a few words in a few minutes to us, as will Mr. Tariq Kareem. So we will keep this program short. This is a weeknight. We're conscious of the fact that people need to get back, and if you listen to the weather gods, calamity is coming in terms of an ice storm, so we want to make sure we get you home on time. Because it's a small gathering, and it's by design. You were asked to join because of your interest in such efforts, so we want to keep this participative, interactive. The talk that the President will share has got a lot of that stuff built in, but feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions as folks finish. Ansa's got a roving microphone that she will bring to you. So let's get going. We have a couple of people in this quick succession come up and say a few words. And I will ask Amir Chalisa, who is a collaborator on many things, to come and say a few words.
I just don't like standing on the stage. Makes me look taller. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First of all, thank you so much for being here tonight. Habib University's cause is an amazing cause to be a part of. I did not know enough about Habib, even though I lived in Karachi. I know about Habib School because we always used to compete, as I went to BBS and always used to compete with Habib and St. Patrick's and St. Paul's and all the schools. So that's all I knew about Habib until I had a chance to visit Pakistan last year. And then further, I had a chance to visit Habib University and meet Wasir Saab and Aksa and all the other people. And I must say, I haven't had an opportunity to visit a lot of education institutions, especially the higher education ones in Pakistan, but this one that I did, it truly impressed me. I think Zen, you, I, and Tariq were together this past August, and we visited IBA, we visited your alma mater, Grammar School, where you scolded all the children for being rich. And then we visited Habib. And the difference we saw was that in Habib, you saw a lot of people that were truly not from rich families. They were people that were just ordinary people that found a way into Habib from all the philanthropy that all of you and others do, and it changes their lives. And I kind of think back to our stories, many of us, including myself, that I came to this country for higher education, different time, and I wonder if things hadn't worked out for me, what would have happened, right, Zen? So I look back at that experience of my own, and then I think about Habib, and I think about all the people that serve the university, and all the people that donate money, or are patrons, or are graduates, and all the work they put in, and all the teachers, and the true testament you really find is when you talk to the students there. That day when Zain and I visited Habib, we had an opportunity to talk to the students. And the students will tell you the correct story. They'll tell you why they're there, what they feel, and what it looks like. It kind of reminded me of when I first came to this country, and I didn't know anybody, and I was alone. And I went from a comfort zone to a non-comfort zone. And one of the things I realized that what makes Habib different is that they make kids feel at home. They give them a whole education, they give them that parents that they don't have. And if I remember correctly, you have students coming from all different parts of the country. And you graciously accept them, you pay for them, you give a lot of fees, and I'm sure in your talk you'll talk about that. And that I thought was really unique, and I made my decision back then. I came back and told my wife knows that that's an educational institution we both have to support. And there's lots of good ones. There's NUS, and there's others that many of us support. But tonight the purpose is not to do fundraising, but the purpose is just to give you an opportunity to learn from Asif Saab, who's come all the way from Pakistan, a little bit more about Habib. And our goal is that those of you that have family in Pakistan, especially in Karachi, that you will give an opportunity to those to go and engage. Very recently, I think Asif, you were in Pakistan and you had a chance to go and visit him as well, and you were pleasantly surprised that you saw so much of connection between students and academics and all the things that were happening. And I think that's the purpose of the event tonight, that we just want to introduce you to what Habib University is, what the thought process is, what they do, and we'll certainly encourage you to let your family members in Karachi know that if they want to go out and visit the university, certainly get hold of Aksa and Asif Saab and do that tour. And you become a sound mechanism. If each one of us, 60 people in the room, tells 10 other people, all of a sudden 600 other people know about Habib. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, is just give an open mind, learn about it, experience what you're going to hear today, and then hopefully pass on the message and let other people experience that. So with that, I would like to give the mic over to our Honorable Consul General of Pakistan, Tariq Karim, to come and say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir Saab, everyone. This is really my great honor and pleasure to join you. This is, I think, is a great initiative. We have seen the growth of so many universities in Pakistan recently, but I think the Habib University is a great name. It's a very prominent institution that is serving Pakistan, contributing enormously in the socio-economic development of Pakistan. I think their contribution is promoting education, liberal arts, sciences. I think that's a great name. I think that I'm really very optimistic after seeing so many people of diverse backgrounds here. You are very successful doing so many things in your respective fields. That is a great strength of our community. So since my arrival here as the Consul General, one of the key priorities was to visit the universities, to talk with their leadership, and to speak there and to look what are the opportunities are there to connect the prominent institutions here and back home. And I think there are a lot of opportunities. I see a lot of interest here as well, especially I think the Habib University, I think has the expertise, so that can be really helpful for taking the knowledge, ideas, research, and other things from here to there. So we will see along with our partners, RS Saab and others who really organize this function. I think it's a great, there's an opportunity in every field. Economics, others is brilliant, but I think the academic collaboration, the universities and institutional linkages, that is so important because it facilitates student-to-student exchanges, faculty, flow of information and ideas, and also promotes the linkages, for example, IT sector, so many others that are very closely related to the academia. So our all support is with you in such endeavors, whatever initiative you will take, and I think we can also discuss that. I have some of the ideas that came emerged during our discussion with the leadership of different universities here in this region. There are some of the very among the best institutions there. So I would like if Habib University can also benefit from that. So thank you so much.
It is easier. So thank you for joining us and giving your words. So let's, we wanna hear from, like what they say, the horse's mouth. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Wasif for now almost a year, so something over a year. You know many other people here, and you'll speak to that. But I think he's the only person that I know who can somehow string Ghalib and Sudoku in the context of higher education. So without further ado, please give a warm Chicago welcome to Wasif.
Thank you so much. Adab and salam to everyone. Just before coming to taking the flight, I checked the temperature. So the translation of temperature in Urdu is darja hararat. But the temperature we should not dignify it with the term hararat. So the welcome is warm, that's for sure. But there has to be some new term to describe whatever dwelling this is when I stepped out. No. I just want to first acknowledge the wonderful hosts who sort of strung it together in this darja hararat or lack thereof. Such wonderful gathering. Ashraf Bhai, Ashraf Khani, we wouldn't be having this wonderful samosa in this warm and wonderful room without him. Thank you so much, Ashraf Bhai. And of course, the charismatic MC and the center of gravity for all of this is Haris. He obviously couldn't thank himself when he was singing, so thank you, Haris. And Amir, who had come and shown such passion, such sincerity, and has been sort of, being round the clock without any regard for time zone. Thank you, Amir Sharif Saab. I don't have my list. Of course, I just was just getting a passionate and disruptive description of where the world is going from Rafiq just before we walked into this room. But a special thank you to Rafiq Mohammadi because he's very connected to His Highness, so I know it is a little bit of a disturbing time, but still he was the first one to arrive and has been instrumental in inspiring us. And we'll talk about it a little bit in the presentation, but thank you, Rafiq. Also want to acknowledge the presence of Sayyida Habib. She is the daughter of our founding chancellor, Rafiq M. Habib, who sends his very warm regards, helping with the ice storm, I hope. His regards. Council General Saab. And I especially want to single out Zain. So last time when we came, he took a flight from San Francisco to here, and not today too, in the midst of all the cancellation and all, so he's here all the way from the West Coast. Ever since I met him in November of 2022, there is not an event in North America that we had that Zan didn't join and help us. And lastly, two surprises that Haris pulled off. Ghulam Uncle and Mala Auntie. I'm meeting them after 15 years and I know them for 30 years when I used to receive food from them in Washington, D.C. So me and a dear friend of mine who grew up here, we lived in D.C. and never cooked a day. I don't think we knew how to turn on that because we were continuously getting this food chain that his parents and their friends had established a supply from here all the way to DC. And it was arriving in time all the time. This is before DoorDash or Uber Eats. So thank you, it's wonderful to see you. So this is right, this is correct. This is an interesting, just about this photo, this was generated by AI. So we gave them a command about Ghalib. I'm not sure how to prompt engineer that. Oops. So somehow he had Ghalib wear some Versace shoes.
He's hallucinating.
Which was I thought, maybe in his last days, he received his final wazifa from Bahadur Shah Zafar or something. But I thought it's a good slide. So this, in fact, is going to touch on all three things, literally. Ghalib, Sudoku, and Pakistan's higher education's paradox of riddle. So in the spirit of Sudoku first, these are some unrelated numbers. So we have cryptographers, computer programmers, technologists here in the room. But there are some people who have seen versions of this presentation, so they can't let it out. They are somehow connected to a Habib University story. These are, so please remember these numbers: 389, 121, 1.96, and 98.04. Less than 1%, 29 and 700 plus. Right? All right. Let's start unpacking them. So each number actually is captured by one of Ghalib's immortalized couplets. This number actually resonates with two shades from the same ghazal. So the one that we picked is "Hum wahan hain jahan se humko bhi kuch hamari khabar nahi aati." The other one could have fitted well. Aage aati thi haal dil pe hansi, ab kisi baat pe nahi aati. So this is where Pakistan is ranked in global higher education. तो हम वहाँ हैं जहाँ से हमको भी कुछ हमारी खबर नहीं है। आगे आती थी हालत दिल पे हंसी, अब किसी बात पे नहीं आती। So when we started tracking this, Bangladesh was at 130 in 2014. It has made a significant stride by 10 more numbers to 120. Pakistan was at 114, so it has slid further down to 121. And the countries, you can see Nepal, and of course, you can do it in South Asia as well. There is one graph, I think, that speaks to South Asia. Pakistan has remained in the vicinity of some of the most distressed parts of the world, which are in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's the secret of 121. This is a composite. This is from World Intellectual Property Organization. They combine a number of things from Global Higher Education Index, from World Economic Forum, from UNDP. This is a very good index. So their rankings are very complex and something to be looked at. And this is the worst development indicator. So Pakistan obviously fares poorly in primary and in health and other indicators, but nowhere as bad as this. That's the higher education. Because it is relative to the population that is eligible to get into, potential to get into tertiary. Okay, so the obvious question is that what is pulling it down? Right? So, it's one of the world's worst undergraduate systems. There is no other, let's say, sugar-coated adjective that I can come up with. It's literally is. So from 1947 till now, I don't know how many years have passed, close to 80. We have not really figured out how critical is the undergraduate, the most crucial segment of higher education, right? And within that, there is hardly any opportunity. So these are the two factors. So there are many other which contribute to it, these being the two leading. Okay? So in the United States, of 100% so 83% is the enrollment. And 78% of all higher education enrollment is just undergrad. So that means 22% only go to grad school. Undergrad is so sufficient. This is a bit of a cryptic picture of how undergrad is done in Pakistan. So you can do a 2-year, you can do a 3-year, you can do a 5-year program. So there is no coherence. No one has been able to sort of figure out any kind of well thought out undergraduate experience. So that was 121. Closely tied to it is this. So this is Pakistan's tertiary enrollment in South Asia, 13%. This is actually Pakistan's government's own number. If we apply some more sort of complex calculation, this could be even further lower. So the only country that we are doing numerically slightly better at tertiary level in South Asia is Afghanistan. So Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, with comparable population, India of course is a different story. Iran is not necessarily South Asia, it's West Asia, but it's obviously in a different orbit. So this is eligible age population, let's say from 18, 19 till 27, 28. What percentage of it is in any kind of tertiary education? Pakistan is the near lowest in South Asia. So that's the first level of absence of opportunity. And the advent of private university actually somehow made it worse. Right? So private universities are like the rest of the world, with the exception of the United States and Pakistan, are not that old, they're 40 years old. And they didn't really help this opportunity problem. They actually caused it to become somewhat more toxic. So I'm sure this is what they were, this is the share for private universities, universities like mine. वही जिनसे तो आपको खस्तगी की दाद पाने की, वो हमसे ज़्यादा रास्ता दे गए, सितम निकले। हज़ारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमान फिर भी कम निकले, इसी गज़ल का शेर। I mean that what you were expecting to make things better, you know, they made it more miserable. And this is how. So, I don't know how many of you know that constitutionally it wasn't possible to create private universities in Pakistan. So they had to come into being as a result of martial law decree in 1980s. So Ziaul Haq, as a chief martial law administrator, issued decrees for LAMs, and for Aga Khan, for LAMs, and for FAST. These were the three universities that were created in the 80s. And then Benazir gave them constitutional protection, and then it became constitutionally possible in the 90s that private universities would come into being. But they had basically two paths available to them. So you become a very mediocre university because there is no ecosystem, policy-wise, funding-wise, society-wise, or you become a decent university. Both of them rely on one thing: student. Right? So you either keep the cost low and do a sucky job, or you do a good job, but the costs are out of control. So you have both types in Pakistan, much larger group to the left and a small group to the right. Right? And the reason is that their sustainability, 98% depends on student tuition. That's the only source of money they have. Right? So what does it do? You can have these kind of universities, but what's the logical outcome? So people who have lived in Pakistan can understand it better. So this is Pakistani high school pie. 98.04% of Pakistani high school output comes out of metric stream. metric and inter stream. Right? About 2% come out of Cambridge or other international stream, which is O level and A level. So those who are from Pakistan, how many of you went to metric inter? Right? And how many went to O level, A level? So there's few, right? So if you do it in Pakistan, you wouldn't find these 5,000, almost everybody is from there, right? So remember this pie, the purple is metric inter, the yellow is O level, A level. What happens? So we have tracked the 3 best universities in Pakistan, 2 in Karachi and 1 in Lahore, without naming them. Yes, let's call them good universities. Right? And pay attention to the color. This is their enrollment. 98% of their students come from that 2%. Right? And 2% come from that 98%. They're not doing it out of some classist cynicism. It's just the way they can do it. That's the only financial model that's available to them. Right? So there's a massive disenfranchisement. There is, that's why the overall enrollment is so low that many students after doing metric or inter, they don't even bother applying because they know that there isn't any decent opportunity available to them. So we have established that Pakistan's higher education is a two-headed dragon. It has a terrible undergraduate imagination and it has a severe problem in access, right? So it's bala ke do sare, okay? Do saron wala ashtaha. So how do we take a quest to deal with this? So when we analyzed this some years ago, let's say 10, 15 years ago, we discovered that somewhere this particular bala is being slaved for 389 years. But it is somehow restricted in one country. That's that first number, remember? 389. It was humbling for us. So we were not the first one who were realizing this. देखते कि तुम्हें उस्ताद नहीं हुआ गालिब कहते हैं अगले ज़माने में कोई मीर भी था. Right? So who was the mir to our Ghalib? These guys. You know their names? Of course. John Evans did something not far from here. Not many people know their business. Why were they wealthy? Right? So who knows what Leland Stanford was doing for money? It's not important. Right? So nobody really knows their business or companies. This is actually, Sayyida perhaps knows that. This was my first presentation to Habib family, where I offended them by saying that nobody from outside this room would care about the Habib Bank's legacy, but people will continue to acknowledge if this university is what we wish it would be. Yeah. So something started to happen in this country and it was so somewhat unique. So you see the year on the top right, it's 1636. What's so odd about this year? It's 140 years before 1776. So an institution of higher learning started to exist 140 years before the country. So there was no state to run it. And another institution in 1701 came up in New Haven. Out of my spite for them, because I'm a Harvard guy, I didn't mention them here. but that's Yale. And of course, many others. So, a new ethos which has remained somewhat contained in this country, that university is actually a responsibility or even a calling for communities and private citizens, right? It exists brilliantly here, and it has created these phenomenal institutions and continue to do so. Yeah, so not by kings or governments, but by people and communities. So this is the philanthropic ethos that allowed for that particular equation to balance, that you don't have to recover all the money from students. As a result, the United States is in a different orbit. It contributes an enormous amount of philanthropic enterprise. So this was, I think, last year in 2019, 550 billion. We should be close to 600 billion now, every year. And the initial engine was the establishing of these institutions, right? So it is, if you compare it to any other place, it is double the GDP, and of course the real amount, because of the relative size of the United States GDP is astronomical. So if you look at the philanthropic pie in the US, all the money that goes to, so it's about 58 billion in 2020, about 3/4 of it goes to higher education. And they do philanthropy kind of weirdly. So a lot of this money that is marked under religion actually goes to universities, because many universities, the parent body remains the church. So Notre Dame or Georgetown and so on, they have church as the, or Boston College and etc. So even more than 58 billion. So it's a lot of money that continues to go into higher education. So when we were looking at it, it's like, why is that? For 400 years, a similar institution hasn't emerged anywhere else in the world. Is there some sort of a religious restriction? Some Shariat is stopping it? Or is there a natural law which is preventing it from happening? As it turned out, no, that's not the case. It's just that no one has been able to sort of pull together a narrative strong enough to change philanthropy. So then we looked at the problem here, less than 1%. First, the good news. So Pakistan is a generous society, right? So relative to the world, so this is somewhat reported, somewhat not reported, it could be even higher. So we contribute a decent 1.5% of our GDP for charitable contribution, right? But current model, we have to understand a little bit more closely. The share that fits here is this. बेतदालियों से सुबह सब में हम हुए, जितने ज़्यादा हो गए उतने ही कम हुए. This is a brilliant ghazal by लिखते रहे जुनून की हिकायात खूंचिकां, हर चंद इसमें हाथ हमारे कलम हो. That's the ghazal. इसका ये मतलब है. बेतदालियों से सुबह सब में हम. That disproportion, imbalance makes things worse than better. How? This is Pakistani philanthropic pie. Religion, of course, takes the chunk of it. A big 17% goes into health. But with all of that money poured in, the disease burden, the red chart is the disease burden, continues to go higher and higher. Yeah? Let's look at education. All the philanthropy that's happened in primary education, Pakistan remains within the vicinity of Ethiopia and Afghanistan. Right there.
You're depressing people, Asif.
No, it's a, well, reality sometimes is not very pleasing, right?
True.
This is the Human Development Index. Overall, so there is a path. We just remembered a phenomenal human being who passed yesterday. This was many times his message as well. And somebody listening to him perhaps won a Nobel Prize. That it's building inclusive institutions which are distinguish high-performing society versus the ones that are struggling. So what our philanthropy is not doing, while it's contributing enormously to various charities, we are not sure institutionally what is the impact they are making. Yeah. So this is that less than 1%. If you looked at 13% of Pakistani philanthropic pie that's contributed to education, only about 1% of it goes to higher education. 99% of that money is mobilized just for basic and primary education. Right? So distributed randomly. Those are obviously small centers. There's no strong, inclusive institution that comes into being as a result. This 1% perhaps exists because of Habib family. I'm actually serious. That's how absent it is from anyone's imagination or anyone's philanthropic radar. So it's not seen as a cause that people want to support or contribute to. So it's not a two-headed problem, it's a three-headed dragon. It's a hydra. It's very bad undergraduate, very few opportunities, and nobody cares. These are the three fundamental problems, right? So let's take an aim at all three heads. So how do we solve this? You create a world-class undergraduate program. You make it available to everybody and somehow convince community and community leaders to take interest in it and support it. That's the solution. Let's see. It's a difficult thing to do. There's a reason it hasn't happened in 389 years anywhere else. The couplet that fits in this is my personal favorite शेर of Wali. है कहाँ तमन्ना का दूसरा कदम यारा, हमने दश्ते इम्का को एक नक्श पा पाया। इश्क से तबीयत ने ज़ीस्त का मदा पूरा पाया, दर्द की दवा पाई, दर्द दिला दवा पाया, ये वो शिकवा है। कहते हो ना देंगे हम दिल अगर बड़ा पाया, दिल कहाँ के गुम कीजिए हमने मुद्दा पाया। है कहाँ तमन्ना का दूसरा कदम यार, where do I take the next step of my desire or my inspiration? Because the infinitude of possibilities stops at one footstep. So there are many who may have tried but didn't go very far, right? So we took a shot at this plane of possibilities, Dashte-e-Imkan, the infinitude or the plane of possibilities. Yeah? How do we scale it? First, let's build a great undergraduate program. This is one of our good friends, Maria Clave. She was the president of Habib College, which is the #1 undergraduate liberal arts engineering college in the world and in the US. It's part of the Claremont Consortium. This is what she had to say. That what you're doing is not only relevant for Pakistan, it is relevant for the world. So you create a very well thought out program. You have a reparative lens, which is the complex thing that how do you repair education itself, and you create critically conscious citizens. There are many evidence of that, and you benchmark it with the best institutions in the world, right? So that's the formula. That's Rick Miller. He founded a great institution right outside of Boston, Olin College. So this is what he had to say. It's absolutely right. What Olin has been able to achieve was somewhat easier in comparison to what profoundness what Habib has been able to achieve. It's somewhat surreal. Because it's not that hard to find all the right ingredients right outside of Boston, right? It's somewhat more challenging, somewhat to the east of 5,000 miles east of Boston, that's Karachi, maybe 7,000 miles. So this gentleman knows what he's talking about. That how do you create a confluence of humanities and sciences together? Some of you who visited know that the photos don't do justice to the campus. These are some shots of it. So that's the first problem. First head gone. How do you make it available? Just create the most generous possible framework. This is the money that we keep distributing. This is every year. So year 2023-24, we have given close to ₹1 billion in scholarships to students. See the steep rise in it? Yeah? About 30 million. In all, we have given about ₹5 billion, about 30 million US. This graph illustrates the crucialness of the need. Since our inception, not a single student has dropped out, quoting financial reasons. Zero. This includes COVID-19 episode, economic upheaval, you name it. Yeah? Currently, we have about 1,200 students on campus. 1,035 of them are being supported in very significant ways. So that's 87%. It's good to see, this is to you, why it's less depressing. This is the most financially generous university compared to all of them in the US. There's a massive 70% discount. This is the discount rate, which means that what percentage you donate and what percentage you recover. That means that Habib only recovers 30% of its cost from students and 70% deficit. It's called discount. So you compare to University of Chicago, it offers a 23% discount. Northwestern offers a 44% discount. Habib offers a 70% discount. Right? It's in a different orbit. The closest to us would be like Stanford and Pomona and so on, who have multi-billion-dollar endowments, but still they are unable to match the scale of generosity that we have been able to demonstrate, because that's how crucial is the requirement in Pakistan. There's a reason that these universities' endowment continue to increase, because they are not parting with it, right?
They also invested.
Yeah, but they don't give it enough to students, though. That's the point. So, 87% of students are supported. 40% now are coming from what we call HU tops. These are the students who are coming from inter background, and they are guaranteed 100% support through 4 years. Right? 56% of our students are women, and 56% have been graduated since its inception, and 40% are in STEM graduates. So this is, in the US, the average is 28%. So we are doing 12% better than the United States in enrolling women in STEM. These are some of the examples. These are HU tops. When I say HU tops, that means that they are from intermetric background in some of the wonderful places in the world. So they have created their own companies. All of these are entrepreneurs. These are the ones who are in graduate programs. Again, from Usama actually just finished his PhD from George Washington University in computer engineering just a couple of days ago. And he was from class of 2020. That's the second head bump. Now we come to the third and the difficult head. So what's the hope for this? मुझे राहे सुखन में खौफ गुमराही नहीं गालिब, असाए खिज़रे सहराए सुखन है खामा बेदिल का. So Ghalib is saying that this is a very difficult task. Doing poetry, that too in a new language. Urdu was a new language at the time. For us, a completely sort of non-student dependent, non-tuition dependent institution is like a new language. That's our Rahe Sukhan. But he's saying, Asai Khizre Sahraye Sukhan hai Khama Bedil ka. Okay, for me, it's just as Khizr showed direction to Hazrat Musa, Abdul Qadir Bedil, who was a predecessor to Ghalib, his kalam shows me the light. So let's figure out who is our Abdul Qadir Bedil. Why did we take this task and continue to know and hope that we won't be lost in it? That's the final number, 29 to 700. So Habib family were the one who undertook this task. This is actually a photo of Sayyida's parents, right here, Rafiq Saab and Jamila, right? So they embraced this vision with this unparalleled gift that nobody ever parted with for higher education in Pakistan. And then the community continued to grow. So these are some acknowledgement. Shahbaz Yasin Malik, who's seen to the left, he is the CEO of Hilton Pharma. He alone gives about 60 scholarships every year, right? To the right are the Surtis and again some members of Sayyida's family who have been continuously participating in this since 2015. One Rafiq Mohammadi, just met him in 6-7 months ago in April, and he's already given a grant to start a new data analytics and AI program at Habib University, right? It's right in the work that we offered in fall of 2025. Zain Jivanji, sitting right here, signing the first ever chair given to establish humanities program in Pakistan, in Imam Ali Chair in Wisdom and Knowledge. The Nani family, again, took a leap of faith, named an entire school after them. So our School of Science and Engineering is called the Nani School of Science and Engineering. They are from Houston. And Ashraf Habibullah, there are just a few that we picked. He has established a large endowment for female students in STEM. So all of these folks understand the magic of establishing institutions with communities' help in the United States. And they are able to bring that insight back to where they have roots in Pakistan. The other thing that we have been able to do, very traditional givers, people who want to give zakat and all, to create a narrative that this is actually enshrined in the religious ethic of Islam to support scholarship and higher education, especially starting from 8th, 9th, 10th century, when the idea of waqf and idea of establishing places like Baitul Hikmah or universities in North Africa, they were created. And the idea of waqf is basically directly is the predecessor to the idea of endowment. So many traditional givers now support us via their religious organization. So these were the 29 folks who started it all in the first 2-3 years. Right. So starting with Rafiq Saab, right in the middle, and members of Habib family, and grew to a small group of well-wishers and supporters for the first few years. Now it continues to grow. Now we have more than 700 regular donors. These are some photos in Pakistan. Many in the United States, especially in Houston. Amir somehow features, actually, this is US, everywhere. I thought that Amir like Ashraf Saab is in both cities. So starting in Houston, traveling to the Silicon Valley, now coming here in the warm, cold Chicago, right? These are some of the photos of our visit back in April. And these are some photos where some of you visited there. This is Haris in front of our logo. This is the third head, but it is not fully slayed. It remains, and it continues to threaten those of you who are familiar with the story of Hydra. Even if the one head remains, it can regenerate the others very quickly. So the slaying of it remains in your hand. You have many possibilities to figure out how you can connect and participate. The first being what Amir mentioned, tell other folks. 60 in this room should be 400-500 next time when we connect. That's how much it's going to take, because the third head is the toughest to slay. For 389 years, nobody outside of the United States has been able to figure out how to do it. Habib University is aiming to be the first one. How do we take that next step in this plane of possibilities? Thank you.
I think there's a few questions. Wasif,
Sure.
to stay here. That was depressing and optimistic at the same time, because they have somehow figured out a formula to get Pakistan out of the rut that it's in. I'm sure there are questions that it has generated. So let's take a few questions right now. Ashraf, you have some. Akshay, you have a
Was
microphone.
a great presentation, mashallah. I think I would take not depressing, but eye-opener for me at least, and hopefully with the rest of the crowd, mashallah. So, one question I have right now, what strategies can Habib University implement to secure multi-million or maybe multi-billion someday endowment funds, and what steps are necessary to ensure long-term success in achieving these funding goals?
Right. Thank you, Ashwin. So first, the fundamental strategy that we presented, but comes out as somewhat disturbing, but hopefully a strong narrative, that this is something that all of us ignored somehow. While billions have been poured via philanthropy in Pakistan and by Pakistanis from outside of Pakistan, nobody was thinking of actually optimizing the potential of these young people that we keep quoting. That Pakistan has a large young population, Pakistan has a large young population, but what are we doing about it? So that's where I think focusing on that this is perhaps a very optimal, very effective, maybe maximum ROI area. If an institution that has figured out what to do and how to do it, that may be the right place to invest. So that's our strategy. That how do we bring higher education on philanthropic radar, where it is missing to a point that it accounts for less than 1% of that 1.5% GDP that Pakistanis part with in charitable contribution. The big donation, so endowment building, again, Habib family's commitment has been very, very helpful in building the endowment. So we don't take any, we don't run any capital campaigns. That means that we don't raise any money to build anything. Habib family builds everything. But people are able to create legacies as a result. So all of that money goes into endowment. If we raise enough money every year, Habib family has a fixed commitment which comes anyway. So if we don't use that money for operation, that goes into endowment. So endowment continues to grow. So we have about $35–40 million already raised from non-Habib sources in endowment, which is 35–40 million more than any other university in the country, because we are the only one who's working on it. The big jump that you're talking about will come with, can only come with the help of people like you. That how do we mainstream it? So American universities, so you'll be shocked to know the percentage of, so I told you the numbers that how much Americans contribute in higher education. The rest of the world's contribution in higher education, about 40% of that contribution comes to American universities. So people in Europe give less money to universities in Europe and more money to universities in the US. So we will want to be the first one to change this traffic the other way. That how do we raise this discourse to mainstream United States philanthropy, higher education philanthropy? That a large or multiple large donors say that look, it's a fraction of a price. It costs about $7,000 per year for Habib University to educate a child, maybe $6,500, which is a tenth of the price. For a fraction of a price, you can actually make similar, if not a higher impact. So we are hoping that we'll be able to convince somebody who can part with 50 or 100 or $200 million and see it as a very worthwhile global investment. Instead of just hoovering money from around the world, we're hoping that somebody will start contributing to other parts of the world. So these are the three-level strategies. That how do we, Habib family continues to support, people are changing their perspective on philanthropy in Pakistan, and how do we mainstream this in the United States?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a very enlightening and very educational presentation. And so where you have broken it down and presented it was phenomenal. I have a question regarding, based on the success that Habib University has already achieved, how are you planning to scale this and where do you want to take it? If you have the money, what's your plan to solve the problems that you highlighted?
So universities, so we directly have, so there's a two-pronged plan. So one is that we want to start working on a very large residential campus, which will quadruple, if not more, our capacity in next few years. So we'll have 5,000–6,000 students and proportional faculty, and it will be residential. It's to the north of Karachi. So His Highness the Aga Khan started the establishing of an education city to the north of Karachi, but that project remained stalled, so much so that they lost interest in it, AKU lost interest in it. But like everything in Pakistan, things start to develop when there is a housing project. So suddenly where the education city was, there is a DHA as well as a Bahariya town. So suddenly all the infrastructure has come and we are very hopeful that we'll have our main campus there. So that's the direct impact. The indirect impact is that all main prominent universities are engaged with us. They want to have a similar type of core curriculum. They want to have similar type of pedagogy. Aga Khan, their School of Arts and Sciences was stalled for 30 years. They got emboldened because of Habib University, so they started a small program a couple of years ago. IBA has withdrawn from its brand as a business school. They want to be seen as a more general university. LUMS and Habib are collaborating. Higher Education Commission in Pakistan, it goes through its ups and downs, but they are very serious about adopting Habib University's model as a national policy. So in many ways we want to impact, but the most important thing is that we are a great proof of concept. So continuous success is inspiring a number of other possibilities in Pakistan. So we're hoping that, let's say in 10 years, if we are able to reach our scale and we are able to make many of these impacts, this particular index that I showed you at 121, hopefully we'll have a 10-point jump on it.
Dr. Johnson.
Good evening. One question, does your university have a fundraising professional in the United States that can cultivate the individuals in this room and other places to assist you in generating those funds that you need to expand your university?
So we have to start with, we have a registered foundation, 501c, Habib University Foundation, United States. We go back and forth with the idea of having a professional setup because they are unable to understand the context of it and the connectedness, especially to Pakistani Americans. And B, their first, let's say usually, their first concern is that what is in it for them? How big a cut they would want to take and so on. So we have been a little bearish on it, and we have been blessed with people like Haris and Ashraf Saab and so on to carry the message. But I think that's eventually the natural destination.
It must be your own. You can't rent one because they will always want their piece.
Right.
You must have your own.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Anything else? And you know, Wasif is around. We'll circulate during dinner. But go ahead, Raza.
So, this is a great presentation. I'm just curious. So you're providing almost free, providing education. So, what is the eligibility to get into the university? Because I bet everyone wants to be in your school, right? Do you have the capacity, or do you have an entrance exam? How do you accept?
No, it's very competitive. So we get about 6,000 applications, and we select about 300, 350.
Only 300.
Yeah, but that's the capacity. We have a capacity of maybe 1,400 students on the campus. So because so when we started, everybody was skeptical that this is a fraud and Habibs have a scheme to make money eventually from it, etc., and so on. But now a lot of it has been sort of dissipated. So we have these 6,000 applications, and it's very competitive. So our cutoff. So one of the factors is high school score. So our cutoff last year was 92%. So if you have scored an A1, 92% and above, we took. So 90 to 92%, the waiting list was 400 students long. So yeah, it's hard to get in.
Real quick, last question here.
Oh, go ahead.
You.
Just a quick question with regards to that you mentioned about the getting admission. Most of the U.S. universities nowadays, they are going away from the aptitude test because of the equity perspective. And exactly you mentioned that 40% of U.S. students come from the metric system.
And now 50.
Now 50.
Yes.
50. So how do you manage that the majority of the students can come from those sectors and also able to have some kind of other assessment rather than the aptitude test, because that is the barrier and that is not about the equity.
Right. So that's why we didn't opt for the usual aptitude. We take something called AccuPlacer, which is a different test. And we have these applicants, so say we take about 170 from this background, 150, 160. So we train about 700 of them for about a month and a half before the exam. And then we pick about 170, and in the process they get trained, they can actually get into an IBA and so on. So it's a process. We don't have currently the instruments to do away completely with an entrance exam, because if we rely too much on interview, it's very uneven, because it's subjective, you depend on who is in it. We do have an interview, they write an essay as well. We call it the Yosen essay, which is the motto of the university, and they can write it in any language. So many write in Sindhi, some write it in Urdu, Punjabi, of course English. And then the test and their high school score. So these are the 4 things which contribute to their admission. But for the test section, we help the metric students to prepare. University hosts their preparatory classes for about 6 weeks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wasif.
Thank you.
I want to keep to our promise that we'll feed you and get you out of here, but we want to get a couple of folks up here real quick. First, I'm going to just ask Ms. Sayyida Habib to just come and join me for a second. She's a daughter of Mr. Rafiq Habib, who serves as the founding chancellor of the university.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I just want to say a very, very short few words on behalf of the Habib family. I don't know if you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Closer to the mouth.
So just on behalf of my father, the Chancellor, Mr. Rafiq M. Habib, and the Habib family, thank you so much for being here. And personally, honestly, this is a real pleasure for me, because I've been in Chicago now for 10 years, and it's really, I've been wanting this to happen for quite some time. So I just want to talk a little bit about the family. I don't know how familiar people are about the family. I mean, mashallah, I think Wasif has said everything to say about education, but I just want to talk about the family. So the Habib family name has been connected with philanthropy for several generations, actually, prior to the birth of Pakistan. So, well before Pakistan was even a country. And the aim has always been of the family to meet the needs of the community overall, to see and foresee the needs of the community and meet those with our own projects, as well as in collaboration with other organizations, so that the greatest good can be accomplished. And I'd like to talk about some of the values that I've learned growing up, being a Habib. My father always taught me 2 very important things, 2 very important lessons, which I think are really valuable to share. One, that with wealth comes responsibility. That's the first really important thing that I grew up believing. And 2, that it's exceedingly important, really, really important, to have a long-term vision. Not just for yourself, but for your community and for those around you. And those are the values that I've grown up with. And Habib University demonstrates these principles actually in action. A higher education is one of the most important investments in the long-term growth of our nation. And just imagine, Wasif said only 1% is going into a higher education. So what happens to all these kids that are, they get a lot through the younger days, but then what happens when they're actually ready to do something in the world? That really stuck out to me today, so that's something to think about. So, for me, myself, I obtained a liberal arts education outside of Pakistan. That's because it didn't exist. When I was actually growing up, it didn't exist. There was no choice, right? And one of the things that I've learned, and I firmly know this, that experiencing a liberal arts education, these disciplines teach you to truly think outside the box. And Pakistan needs more young minds who can innovate and find creative solutions and respond to the needs of not only the ever-changing country, but the ever-changing world that we live in. Right? So on behalf of the university, I invite you all to become Mohsinin of our university, to really, really bring our nation up and to support our young people. Thank you.
Rafiq, can I have you please just join us for a second? So I think, you know, it's these first steps that the Habib family took to make that initial seed endowment that resulted in the vision getting started, and then it has motivated many other people. One of them, a dear friend here, Rafiq, who's recently gotten involved with the university, is going to speak to you guys.
Assalamu alaikum. Pakistan Zindabad, of course. Many years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Ronald Reagan when I was a student at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And I ran up to him and said, Mr. President, any advice? He says, whenever there is dinner, speak fast. Do not keep people between your speech and dinner. It never works. All right. Met Wasif. I do my homework, as Harris knows, and I was supposed to meet him the next day, right? I've been familiar with the Habib family forever because Pakistan history is my passion. Few of you know that when Pakistan was in giant trouble because the Indian government was not releasing the funds that were due to Pakistan, it was the Habib family that wrote the check, right? So
65 million rupees.
Yep, enormous amount of money. In fact, a blank check was presented to Quaid-e-Azam, and he wrote whatever he wanted to. So going very quickly, I'm going to meet Wasif. You know, I love him already because he loves Urdu, poetry, which connects us immediately together, right? So I get on the web, and I start downloading all the faculty members at the Tanani School of Engineering, right? And download it to an Excel sheet, and I start highlighting it. Started about 10 o'clock, and I'm up till 1 in the morning marking the bios. And if you haven't done that experiment, it's one of the finest collections of universities represented at Habib, right? It gives you goosebumps. You know, Carnegie Mellon, Oxford, you name it. There's no 121 there. There's all the ones from the one teaching our younger generation, right? So that was my first meeting with Wasif, and I came prepared and I said, how can I help, right? How can I help? Now, I'm going to do something uncharacteristic and ask you to help me. It's now 610 because Wasif used a lot of numbers, so I'll use some numbers. And it's time for the first revelation for Prophet Muhammad, right? The very first. Now, I am a nachiz. If Allah is talking to me, I'll say, Yar batao stock kaun sa upar jayega, right? I'm nothing, right? That's me. So the angel does the first revelation, and I would like to share that with you. It has always puzzled me, always. I'm 65 years old now. And the first revelation, and the first word in the first revelation is Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi, and I'll translate it for our friends here. I had to write it down because we have to get it precise. Read in the name of the Lord who created. Why is that first word read? It has nothing to do with being number 121, by the way, okay?
Yes.
We don't have to be here, right?
Rafiq, can you speak in the mic? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can speak loudly when things. So we don't have to be 121, right? If you read about the Muslim history, for many hundred years, the rate of innovation and the contribution to sciences was absolutely fantastic, right? And so now I get to the last part of our little conversation. I love Aziz Mian Kawal. Even though my Urdu is called Gulabi Urdu, I don't even speak Salis Urdu, I speak Gulabi Urdu. You know what Aziz Mian Kamal says? ये दर्द सर नहीं है, ये दर्द जिगर है, right? One thing we share, every single person shares with me, and I don't know most of you, is that we love Pakistan, है ना? Just in Javed Miadad में छक्का लगा ना, I was only 20 years old, and we celebrated it for an entire year, right? Dubai mein, last ball, right? So we love Pakistan, we want Pakistan to do better. I myself am a science person, and what happens in science is that you acknowledge sometimes that a problem is not solvable immediately. Cancer, if you have ever read the book Emperor of All Melodies, it has been a 70, 80-year journey to figure out how to solve cancer. जो पाकिस्तान है ना, पाकिस्तान के मसाइल है ना, वो तो पाकिस्तानी ही solve करेंगे, right? It's in their hands, it's their country. It's their beloved country. We are a nation, by the way. When I travel in Pakistan now, I get the feeling that when you talk to people, they will say that they are a Pakistani. There's more of the feeling that we are all Pakistanis than in any other time I've experienced, right? So the dimension of the problem is very deep, right? There's Indus Hospital, there is SIUT in Karachi, magnificent institute. There are people in Liari, like the Kiran Foundation, you know, Sabina Khatri that I work with all the time. All of these things have to be done. All of these things have to be done, right? But there is no substitute to building institutions of higher learning. आप लोगों को पता है कि मुगल एरा की सबसे बड़ी खामी क्या है? Defect? Shalimar Garden. You travel in Delhi, my God, you look at those monuments. Ask yourself, where were the universities that the Mughals built? They did not, right? Coming to the end, I'm glad that we paid tribute to my Imam that just passed away. But the more important thing for me is that his grandfather and Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan used to stand at street corners collecting chanda. You know what that was for? The Imam used to take his hat out so the murids would put coins in his hat. You know what that money was for? Converting Aligarh College into Aligarh Muslim University. So, my dear sister, I thank you from the bottom of my heart that your family decided to do something far-reaching and critical for our future, right? My expectation is that not only will Pakistan be a great place, but it will contribute to humanity. The per capita income of Pakistanis in this country is higher than the Chinese. You may not believe it, go home and check it. You'll be flabbergasted that the Pakistanis in this country do extremely well, right? So, inshallah, this is not a fundraiser at all, but I'm committed, I'm totally committed to helping Wasif and his entire team achieve good results for our beloved country. Thank you very much.
Zan, come on up here. Another great philanthropist, leader who's joined this Habib University journey. As Wasif said, you've been on the tour of the US for the last few years since he's been here. Over to you.
So first of all, Ronald Reagan never called me over, so I don't give a damn crap about you, Mr. Getter. You know, I'll talk as long as I want. And those who know it, that you'll have to snatch this out of my hand. I want to give you something that he touched on, Rafiq, and thanks, by the way. Good seeing you again. My story with the Habib family starts way back in 1971 when I was 15 and a half years old. And Pakistan had split up at that moment, and then Bhutto came in and took away some industries out, and so my family kind of became broke, and so I started a fashion line of clothing in Pakistan, the first one of its kind. And then Ali Raza Habib partnered with me to open up a Hash Garments, and so my relationship with the Habib family starts there. I knew the family before that too, whether we were swimming in Gymkhana or doing something together. I'm also on that 2% list that went to that schools where the rich kids go in and then they do no shit back for the country. They come back and run their factories. They don't do anything for the country at all. And they throw parties everywhere and have fun. So I'm from that 2%, unfortunately. Not from that 98%. So the Habib family continues. Then further down, in 2000, I went and opened up the first chapter of TIE Chapters. TIE is an organization of US, most of you know it. It's one of the largest entrepreneurial organizations in the world. We founded it in 1992. In 2022, we went and opened up chapters in Pakistan, one in Lahore with the help of Babar Saab, and then with the Habib, at that time the CEO, Zakir Hussain, who was Habib Banks, and he helped us open up a chapter in Karachi. Continues. Then I'm walking into the Marriott Hotel in Sugarland, and a very short, stouty guy, I'm pretty tall and handsome, and short little guy walks over in a revolving door. And that short guy was Wasif Saab. And while I'm walking around, there's a revolving door like you have in the front of the hotel here. He's walking out. I'm going to walk in, and I get a call from Javed Maghani Saab. And Javed says, Zain, kitne din ho yahan? And for those who don't understand Urdu, I'm not going to translate. So, aap kitne din ho yahan? So I said, मैं जावेद भाई बस निकल रहा हूँ, मेरी फ्लाइट है 1-2 घंटे में. कहते यार एक आदमी है, उनसे जरूर मिलना. मेरा कौन है? कहते यार एक वासिफ साहब है, उनसे जरूर मिलना. And Wasif is just walking out. This is real true, no exaggeration. Everything I normally say is a lie. This is actually true. So when he walks out, I'm walking up, and I paused for a moment, and I just looked at him, and there was something between me and him at that moment. And that only happened to me in I think some years ago when I met my wife. It didn't happen after that. So anyway, he was paused, and I was paused, and I was looking at it, and I said, and Javed is on the phone. He says, Zarur milna. Maine kaha, aaj next to him. I said, nahi, zarur milna. And I hang up. Next thing, fast forward quickly, I'm meeting Shaukat Dadani for lunch. I'm trying to sell him some insurance. He's trying to sell me something else. And there's a cricket match going on. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a die-hard cricket fan. I've been in Dubai watching the India-Pakistan game. I and my wife have seen every India-Pakistan game in the venue since 2003. We're total die-hard fans. So I said, Shaukat Dadani ko main kehta hu, aap India chalein. मेरे पास booth लिया, so I had taken a whole suite in India and Ahmedabad for the Pakistan India game. So I said, आप मेरे booth में आइएगा. मैंने कहा that way he'll come over. And he tells me, आप क्यों करें ना, हम इराक जा रहे हैं ज़ियारत पर चलें. But I'm also Shia, I'm a boy and Shia. So I said, चले चलते हैं. And my wife has been telling me for years to go to Ziyarat. We ended up going Ziyarat, and guess who leads the prayer? Ziyarat? Wasif. The guy went in the revolving door. And my love with Habib University started again. I want to tell you something that you picked out. And because I'm not a numbers guy, I'm like you, ChatGPT, shut up here, please. ChatGPT started talking to me. In 1636, something happened significant in the Islamic world. And that's the monument that, inshallah ta'ala, Modi will name it under somebody else. Modi is working on it, inshallah. I hope that he changes the name, that it wasn't built by the Muslims. It's called the Taj Mahal. Within the same time frame. He started in 1632, ended in 1652. In And by the way, I'm not as smart as these guys, so my numbers may be a few years off. But who cares, another 50 years there or there, but it's within the years. And please, Wasif and some intelligent people, correct me if I'm wrong. 1632 में शुरू हुआ ताजमहल का creation, 1652 में खत्म हुआ. 1632 में एक clergy form ने, they started a Bay Institute something to teach clergies to become leaders and good clergies. In that one clergy, John Howard donated substantial amount of money and created the Howard University. Was created after it. He didn't create it. Same time frame. Now what happens to the economies and the GDPs of those worlds? At that time, United States was just starting, not even existing, right? According to him. And the British colonies were about 100 million of GDP of today's money. 100 million. The Mughals were 120 billion GDP at that time. But what we did, as I'm doing right now, wearing fancy clothes, a Rolex watch, who cares about education? The Mughals built the Taj Mahal, they built Harvard University, and the rest is 400 years down the road. 100 million of GDP they had, and they built Harvard University. We had 120 billion GDP, and we built the Taj Mahal, and that's my story.
Fantastic. This gives you a sliver of the people who have gotten attracted to this university. I will draw this to a close. I was remiss to mention Marcia Hermanson, who's back here. She just recently joined Habib University, and I've got to get this right. She is the Lady Fatma Endowed Faculty Chair in Women and Divinity, one of the first chairs I got done. She is for people who may not know, she's been in the education space here at Loyola University for many, many years, and another connection of Chicagoans to this great institution. I think we'll close it. Did the students ever show up? There were a few alum of Habib University who were on their way. Maybe they couldn't make it here due to the weather, but there are many students from Habib who have found their way to the University of Chicago, to Northwestern University, and other schools across this country. We will formally bring this event to a close. I want to thank you again on a cold Wednesday night to be here. I hope that you have learned a few things. This, in many ways, this is a disruptive school. It's trying to do things in a very different way. I hope that you have found this to be something that you want to get more involved in. So all we wanted to do was raise your awareness about the university. If you have questions, where did Aksa go? Back here. See Aksa, there is some material that she has left at each of the tables. Engage, come and see me. There is, as you can see, the need that Wasif framed up for us is so huge that it would require all of us and then some to really begin to make a dent. And I think it just, when we started with this thought, we knew that in Chicago, given people's interest in things that are Pakistan, and given that we have world-class institutes here right in Chicago that we've taken advantage of, that we want to contribute to that. So with that, I want to thank all of you. Dinner is served. Stick around, ask questions of Wasif and of Aksa, and we'll formally put that to close. Is there anything else that I missed? There is despite this not being a fundraiser, there is a code out there if you wanted to just, if you were moved in such a way that you wanted to make a contribution. But more importantly, we want your mindshare contribution beyond this event. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.